How we doing, guys? Carmine here. Today I'm going to be talking about another one of my O-gauge locomotives. This is my MTH Premier line New York Central Hudson. This locomotive was actually part of one of the MTH quote-unquote specialty sets. Now, if you guys don't know what that is, MTH was giving you two options in their catalogs. You could actually buy the locomotive just itself, or for an extra $100, you would either get 4 streamlined passenger cars, or I believe it was 5 or 6 freight cars plus a caboose. I could be wrong on those numbers, on the freight cars at least. But for an extra $100, honestly, it was totally worth it just to get the set, unless of course one of the locomotives that they had separately was a specific road number that you did want. Because if you think about it, these passenger or these freight cars alone, the passenger cars are around $80 to $100 separately in some cases, and the freight cars are around $50 to $60 separately in some cases. So it was a heck of a deal if you guys wanted to add just some more rolling stock and things like that. The locomotive and the set item number is 20-3584-1. Now it is listed as a Premier New York Central Streamlined set, which is kind of misleading because the only thing streamlined in this set are the passenger cars. And I actually will show you one of those later on in the video just so you have an idea of what we're looking at. But, of course, in the set, it comes with the traditional standard J1E Hudson, which is the one that I'm sure a lot of New York Central guys, and myself included, have come to know and love. This is running along the lines of the, in my opinion, the scale Hudson made by Lionel in the 1930s. MTH did a beautiful job on this locomotive. It has a 7-pole flywheel-equipped motor, Rule 17 lighting. It has Protosound 3.0. It has the wireless drawbar, the lighted firebox. It also has a DCC receiver, so if you guys want to run it off DCC and convert it to 2-rail O-scale, it has the Protoscale 3.2 conversion. The minimum required curve for this locomotive is 0.42. However, my little layout here in my apartment runs 0.36. The locomotive takes it with no problems. I don't notice any scraping, no squeaking, no weird noises, nothing like that. The only thing is, the overhang from the cab is horrendous. But it is what it is. It's what I have to work with. It works fine for me, and I have no issues with it. Alrighty, guys, now we're going to be taking a closer look at the MTH Premier Line Hudson. Starting up front here at the pilot, you have a dummy scale O-gauge coupler. You have a separately applied coupler cut bar with a little metal chain on the front. This coupler actually can be swapped out for a functioning O-gauge coupler, so you do have the ability to double head the engine. However, the coupler that you do swap it out for is a fixed coupler, so it cannot physically open and close. You'd have to open the couplers on either the passenger cars or the freight cars or the other locomotive. Up front here, we have an operating LED headlight, lighted number boards. However, this boiler front on this locomotive does not swing open like it does on most of them. I don't know if maybe MTH is using an older mold or whatever. It's not a huge deal. Doesn't really bother me. So just wanted to point that out. You have 2 operating marker lights. They actually glow green and they are on either side of the locomotive. You have a separately applied metal handrail that runs the full length of the boiler all the way down. You have a functioning fan-driven smoke unit, and the way you load smoke fluid in this, you pour smoke right down the stack. You have a separately applied, I believe that's a turned brass bell. It's actually really, really nice, really, really pretty. You have legible builder's plates. Now on these, I've noticed, and I've mentioned this before in some of the other videos, MTH got away from the separately applied builder's plates. I'm assuming it's to cut down on, you know, production costs and stuff like that. It's not a huge deal. I think they look better, obviously, when they're separately applied. Lionel still does that, but it's not something that personally kills my opinion on MTH. It's just something I wish they would bring back, but that's just my one little gripe. You have the pistons, the die-cast metal side rods. I really like the side rods in these locomotives because they are like, they're kind of hard to explain what they are. They almost look like a blackened like steel. They're actually very, very pretty. I don't think the video really does it any justice, but they look really, really good. All right, guys, now here's the one side of the locomotive, the fireman's side, actually. As you can see, you get a better view of that blackened metal drive gear. I personally really like it. It looks really, really slick. Adds kind of a sinister appearance to the locomotive. Like I said, I can't say enough good things about it. I really like it. You have a separately applied metal whistle, separately applied metal pop-off valves, dynamo, and you even have a separately applied whistle pull cord as well as a bell pull cord. You have your sand dome, your steam dome, and a bunch of separately applied metal details in the way of piping and lines and all that fun stuff. This drive gear looks so cool when the locomotive is moving. You guys will see that in a few minutes. Back here towards the cab, you have the fireman figure, and you actually have sliding cab windows that will actually slide forwards and backwards. And on the top, you have 3 operating sliding roof hatches that you can open and close at your leisure, as well as the die-cast metal trailing truck. Alrighty guys, here's the engineer side. Pretty much looks the same. There are a little bit more piping and lines and stuff that runs. You have your engineer figure, same thing, your sliding windows that open and close like that, the continuation of the roof hatches. The thing I wanted to show you back here that MTH has been doing on pretty much all their Premier line locomotives, with the exception of a few that I'm hoping to see Lionel do later on in the future, is the drop plate between the engine and the tender. It's a nice little simple detail, but it adds that much more. On this layout I have, it's kind of irrelevant for me because when the locomotive takes a tighter curve, it kind of just falls down in between the locomotive and the tender. So it's kind of pointless, but on some of the other layouts I've taken my trains to run with the wider curves, it stays connected between the engine and the tender, and it adds just that much more detail. And it's some of the things that I really, really applaud MTH for taking the extra step and going through that. All right guys, here's a quick view of the cab. Down here you have, as I said before, the separately applied drop plate, which is actually made out of brass. As you can tell, there are some paint chips on the edge there from use. You have the lighted firebox that is illuminated when the train moves. You have your hand-painted engineer and fireman figures that are separately applied. Up on the top, you have a bunch of separately applied piping. You have hand-painted valves and gauges and different things like that. You also have a functioning light in the cab that is illuminated when the locomotive is standing still. When the locomotive starts to move, the light actually shuts off. And something else that MTH does that I love is I love how they add these little scale cab curtains. I know it's something really small and minuscule, but they look really cool. They add some more detail to it to give it more of that real world appearance to me. Guys, here is the Hudson tender. Up front here you have separately applied metal handrails, die-cast metal steps, die-cast metal trucks, as well as separately applied metal safety chains for the trucks. These are a couple of the little details that I always love that MTH does. They go the extra mile with it. I wish sometimes Lionel would do that, but I understand with cost cutting and things like that, that they try and keep it budgeted as best as possible. You have your separately applied coal load up here. You have some more molded in rivet detail on the doors on the front of the tender here. You have molded in rivet detail, a nice clean New York Central logo, looks really slick, really simple. You have separately applied metal handrails on the back as well as steps. All right guys, here's the back side of the tender. First, you can see the operating protocoupler, the separately applied operating marker lights, backup light, separately applied metal ladder, the continuation of the handrails, the separately applied metal step, the nice New York Central logo, and up here, it's hard for me to get to with my little pointer, but it has an actual water hatch that opens and closes, and underneath that water hatch are the manual controls for the smoke and the sound. Alrighty guys. These are the passenger cars that come with the set. As you can tell, they're in that beautiful olive green paint scheme with the yellow trim. There are 4 cars that come in the set. It is a baggage, 2 coaches, and an observation. This being the observation car. I also purchased separately the 2-car add-on pack, which gives me a sleeper and a diner car. And I also have the separately sold RPO car. And I also bought an express reefer car in the New York Central scheme. So I have a nice scale 8-car train. It looks beautiful. It looks great when it runs, and it's very, very classy. So going in for a closer look, we have our lighted drumhead on the back. Really simple. It just says New York Central, so it can kind of run with any generic named New York Central train. However, the passenger freight announcements on this train are for the Knickerbocker. You will actually hear that announcement sequence when I run the locomotive, so I'll run through all the functions. You have your operating red marker lights in the center and on the sides of this car, separately applied handrails. Die-cast metal operating sprung trucks, so the trucks actually do have some suspension and travel in them, so if you press down on the car, you will actually see that. Each car has hand-painted passenger figures all throughout it. Now, one thing I do want to point out, when MTH's been making these car sets for years, from what I can tell. They have gone through some changes throughout the years, little things here and there. The one big thing, and I don't know if everybody else had an issue with this, was they used to sell them in 5-car sets. They have, for some reason, went to 4-car sets. Like I've said before, I don't know if that's cost cutting, which that would be the most practical answer for that. But what they're doing is, since they gave up 1 car, I feel like they're adding more detail to the other ones. They're putting passenger figures in all of them. So that actually saves you some money on the aspect of going out, buying individual passenger figures, opening up the cars, and inserting them in there. That doesn't happen to bother me because it's part of the hobby. It's stuff that I like to do, and I get to pick the people that I want in the train and the different poses and stuff like that. But it is nice that MTH did this, because for the people that don't want to go through the hassle or the trouble or don't have the time, they just want a fully equipped train car with passengers, this will solve your problem. Here's a closer look at the rear of the observation car. I'm actually going to kill the light here so you guys can see the... Here's the rear of the observation car. I'm actually going to kill the light real quick so you guys can get a better view of the drum head and the interior lighting. Looks really, really nice. It's a nice, soft, warm glow. I know some companies have been going to LEDs, which I understand they're better for power and stuff like that. But to be honest with you, these trains were supposed to be built in the 30s and the 40s, and they didn't have LEDs at that time or HID lighting. And I just love this nice warm glow. The other thing you may notice now is that on some of the windows, they actually have printed screens, or blinds, I guess you want to call them. So that adds a little bit more depth and detail to each passenger car. Here's the other side of the observation car. Pretty much the exact same thing, except the window locations are a little bit different because this car has separate lounge areas, so the window placement is a little bit different on one side from the other. You have the continuation of your die-cast metal trucks with your add-on detail, some die-cast metal step ladders, and these cars all actually have doors that will open and spring back shut. Nice little detail. You have your soft rubber diaphragms, as well as some separately applied detail and handrails, and your functioning O-gauge coupler. Alrighty guys, now I'm going to start the locomotive up. Now I am going to do just the generic startup sequence. They do have an extended startup and an extended shutdown. Basically what that's going to do when you have your DCS remote, if you hit that soft key, you'll actually hear some more atmospheric noises. The crew will talk to each other. You'll hear them say things like, make sure you oil that up, check the water level, different things that the crew hopefully would say to each other in real life. But it takes a little while, but if you guys ever have that option and you have some time, listen to it. It's actually very, very cool. But here we go. This is our generic startup. All right, now give it a couple of seconds. It'll start smoking. The MTH smoke generators tend to heat up really, really quick, like a lot faster than Lionel. And I have noticed that they do smoke a heck of a lot more than Lionel does. So the first sound you're going to hear is the bell. Real simple bell. I notice MTH uses a lot of the same bell noises, but at the same time, I also do understand how many different sounding bells can you possibly have. I know on like the Norfolk and Western J and the diesels and things like that, they do tend to have air ringers in most cases. Some of the Hudsons may have had air ringers later on down the road. So the bells do sound a little different in that aspect depending on which locomotive. Now the next thing is the whistle. The one thing I will point out, MTH uses more of what I would consider a cookie cutter whistle, sound library. Lionel, and from what I've seen, their whistles are a little bit more characteristic and different on locomotives. However, I have heard the same whistles on certain locomotives. But, for example, this Hudson has the exact same whistle that their Heavy Pacifics have, that their Rail King Hudsons have, that some of their consolidations have had. So it's a very generic whistle. I don't hate it. But I do wish in some aspects MTH would maybe play with the sound files a little bit and maybe change it up. That is one person's opinion, so don't, hate on me for that. That's just my opinion. I'm going to do the generic whistle first, then I will do the crossing whistle, and then I will let you guys hear the quillable whistle. So here's the first whistle. Now, if you hold the whistle button down for a few seconds and you release it, it will actually kind of do like a little extra quill at the end. So let's see if we can get that to do it. Okay, the next one is going to be the crossing whistle. MTH always does their crossing whistle so good. I absolutely love it, whether it's on the diesels or the steams. Now, the next whistle I'm going to do is the quillable whistle. That you actually have to scroll to the soft key that says SPW. Sorry if my DCS remote looks a little bit weird. I actually wrapped it in like a carbon fiber wrap. Thank God I know where all the buttons are because I'd be in trouble. Now, the one thing I am going to point out is the quillable whistle on MTH. It's not bad. It's a little bit funky with the rolling wheel. Lionel definitely has it down pat with their legacy system, but then again, MTH added their quilling whistle later on down the road after Lionel started to do it. But you know what? For MTH working with what they had, it's a cool little option. I don't use it that much because I don't like the fact that when you activate the quilling whistle, you do lose control of the speed of the locomotive, so you have to set the locomotive at the speed that you want. Then you can play with the whistle, but it doesn't sound bad for what it is. In some cases, I've seen on some of the Northerns, like the 844 and things like that, the whistle files are completely different for the quilling whistle and the regular whistle, or they'll have different tones. If that bothers you, just don't use the quilling whistle, but this is the standard quilling whistle. A little hard to get used to, but with some practice, you'll get better at it. Alrighty guys, now we're going to move it on out here. So I have a couple of its passenger cars hooked up to the Hudson, so you guys can get an idea of what the consist would look like. I personally, like I've said before, think it looks really, really slick. So I'll do a couple of run-bys, go through some of the sounds, and then I will do the passenger freight announcements at the end, so enjoy. Alrighty guys, now we're going to do the passenger freight announcement sequence. So here we go, enjoy it.
Power arrival from St. Louis on track 1. Train number 24, Knickerbocker. The stop is Indianapolis. Watch it down. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard. Ticketed passengers only. Let me help you with your baggage. Welcome aboard. Now departing for New York on track 1. Train number 24, the Knickerbocker. Welcome aboard. Step right this way. Watch your step. All aboard. I see the conductor checked his watch again. Must be time to go. Conductor's giving us a highball signal. Let's get down the line.
Alrighty guys, that wraps it up for this review. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and hopefully I'll be making more videos sometime in the near future. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.